Teri and I am a wargamer. Now hopefully you've seen my last Welcome to Wargaming video where I talk about why I love wargaming so much. And you've been convinced that wargaming is not only fun and challenging, but social and creative, and you want to get in. Now if you don't have a crazy wargaming friend who's out there bugging you to play games with them every day, you may not know where to start, and it is kind of intimidating. Thankfully you have me, and I'm going to show you in 3 steps how to get in without being totally overwhelmed. So let's go! So the first step in getting war games is this. You pick a game. Now with so many choices out there, it can get a little overwhelming. My advice to you is that you pick a game whose models charm you, that you like the look of, and whose universe captures your imagination. If you have models that you actually like the aesthetic of, you're more likely to build and paint them and therefore stick with them. And if you like the universe and are captured by it, that means that you will be able to invest in those games and really enjoy the games that you're going to be playing in that universe. Now I can't really talk about getting into wargaming without talking about the 2 biggest games in miniature wargaming to start out with. Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000 are like the behemoths of miniature wargaming. They are to mini wargaming what Dungeons & Dragons is to pen and paper role-playing. And because of that, there's a lot of community and culture built around these 2 games. You will probably always be able to find an opponent no matter where in the world you are, and there's a lot of support for these games that comes directly from the company in the way of stores that you can go in and get help in terms of building and painting your models, as well as like toll-free customer lines you can call if you have rules questions, which is kind of cool. If you're looking for something smaller though, because Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000 do tend to lean towards bigger army sizes, there are a lot of skirmish games out there too. Games like Infinity, which also has like a manga-inspired aesthetic, or games like Strange Aeons, which kind of leads into the Lovecraftian horror and a very charming universe, are both games that require very few models and are very easy to get into. Now if the idea of building and painting your own miniatures is a little intimidating, that's okay. There are games out there that come with pre-painted figs, so you can skip that entire step. One awesome game is X-Wing. It is done by Fantasy Flight, so the gaming is really robust, and on top of that it doesn't even include the prequels, which is totally a plus. Another game is Monster Apocalypse for your tokusatsu otaku. It is fantastically fun. For those of you who are into comic books, HeroClix is a terrific miniature collectible game. It not only has a universe you're familiar with characters whose powers you're familiar with, it's a great foray into understanding the basic mechanics of miniature wargaming as well. While callouts are normally done at the end, I'm going to ask you guys to let me know in the comments what you like, and I will do my damnedest to respond and give you my suggestions for games you will enjoy. So go on down below and let me know, and I will tell you what you might like. The next step is to build and paint those models. So if you've never done this before, it is not as difficult as it sounds. Model preparation is actually key to making great looking models, and it's really easy to do if you follow 3 simple steps. The first step is to wash your models. Most models have a release agent on them, particularly pewter or resin models, and that release agent, which actually lets the model come out of the mold, prevents glue and paint from adhering to the model. So if you fill a bin with some warm water and some dish soap and take an old toothbrush and scrub your models down with that and give them a rinse before you start doing anything with your model, you'll actually find that the glue and paint will adhere better to your model in the long run. The next thing you need to do is you have to remove any excess material off the model. For plastic models, that happens to be the sprue, which is like a plastic frame which holds all the pieces of the model together. On resin and pewter models, that tends to be stuff we call flash. For small stuff, you can kind of scrape it off with your fingernail. The bigger stuff, you might have to take like an X-Acto knife or clippers for, and just carefully and neatly remove that stuff off without damaging your own model. And finally, you just have to glue them together. Now, starter set models are extremely easy to build. They're easier than IKEA furniture, and I know when I'm building models, I swear far less than building, say, coffee tables and shelves. But in building these models, you want to make sure you have the right kind of glue. Plastic glue is terrific for plastic models. Again, make sure you look for that sprue. That's a key indicator that it is a plastic model. And that plastic glue actually melts the two parts of the plastic together and it forms a really strong bond. For pewter and resin models, super glue is the stuff you want to use. The thicker stuff is a lot more forgiving for beginner modelers. It actually tends to also fill in any joins where if there's a little bit of a gap, the thicker glue will actually fill that gap in a little bit, which is a real boon when you're starting out. One other thing about super glue is that it might be useful to you to get some accelerant or a bottle of water to use to help cure the outside of the glue and spray it so that it sets right away. If you don't, you may have to stand there and hold your model together for a little while before you can actually let it go and have all the pieces hold together. But you do still want to let your model set if you do use water or accelerant, because that glue is still not fully cured. And if you start handling your model or painting it before that stuff is cured, you're gonna have to just rebuild your model anyways. Once you've built your models, it's time to put paint on them. And this is the stage where I encourage you to enjoy the process and take your time. You can paint a model as simply or as detailed as you're capable of and you're willing to. As long as you do it neatly, you can always go back and add in more details as your skill and knowledge develops in the hobby. The other thing I want to mention is that it will probably look kind of funny to you as you hold your model 3 inches from your face with your paintbrush. Most models do. Most models are built to what we call a tabletop standard, where models look terrific on the tabletop where you're standing 3, 4, 5 feet away from them, and they're usually with the force that they are. I'm going to be the first to admit my models kind of look funny 3 inches away from my face, but when you put them with the rest of the army, they look pretty spectacular. So paint your models neatly and with love and pride, and they will look terrific. The final step is gaming, which happens to be one of my favorite parts of the hobby. Now, here is the keys to understanding the rules before you play your first game. Understand how your models move. Any rules governing the movement of your models should be kind of understood before you go, because it is so intrinsic to the game. Second, you want to know how models kind of shoot. Any numbers you need to resolve those rolls. So if you need 4s or 5s to make hits with your gun, you want to know that before going into a game. Third, you want to know how hand-to-hand combat or assault is resolved if your game has that component in it. If there are any other rules that govern like more complicated aspects of the game, for example magic or having like reinforcement or terrain, leave those out of your first game. Just play the game with those simple aspects, the movement, the shooting, and the close combat, to get a feel for the flow, and then you can add those more complicated elements in later. Remember, you do want to have a tape measure and some dice, and most mini war games are played with D6s, so you can go ahead and steal all those dice out of your old board games before you get going. So I just want to remind you that this is supposed to be fun, and one of the surefire ways to keep things fun is to get your friends involved in miniature wargaming with you. Not only is it really fun to have your friends as your opponents and give you a little bit of freedom to screw up the rules as long as you're playing both sides with the same screwed up rules, it's also really enjoyable to do some of the more solitary aspects of the hobby together as a group under the auspices of these tough global economic times to share supplies. Another thing you can do is also be a part of your local wargaming community, and the best way to do that is to go to your local gaming stores. They usually have gaming nights as well as building and painting nights, where at those events you can play new opponents and meet new people who are also involved in the hobby that you are now enjoying. Now, if you want to see more of me talking about miniature war games on Geek and Sundry's vlogger channel, go down into the doobly-doo below and click the link and vote for me, please. You can vote every day and you don't even need to sign up. You can also let Geek and Sundry and Felicia Day know on their Twitter and Facebook. I know they check that stuff out as well, so I would totally appreciate it. Finally, I want to say thank you to everyone who has supported me so far. All you listeners from Jaded Gamercast and Screaming Heretic, thank you so much. All the fine folks in the Geek and Sundry community and the new vlogger army, you guys rule so hard. And all you lurkers and actual Redditors in the Warhammer subreddit, you guys are so awesome. So this one is totally for you. Thank you.